So I want to begin this class by just looking at what we mean when we talk about apologetics. So Christian apologetics is the defense of the Christian faith. This defense has two sides, two aspects. On the one side, it offers a compelling vision of the Christian faith. On the other hand, it provides a response to objections against the Christian faith. And so apologetics has both this proactive or offensive aspect. It commends the faith. It demonstrates why Christianity is desirable and beautiful and true and good. But apologetics also has a defensive or polemical side. It defends our faith against objections or against misunderstanding. Apologetics responds to doubts and questions that are raised against Christianity. Now, both aspects of apologetics serve two audiences. See, apologetics serves both the church and unbelievers. Sometimes it's assumed that apologetics exists only for those who do not believe in Christianity. But apologetics also serves to strengthen the faith of believers. And so I really hope and I pray that this course is an encouragement to your faith and also to your ministry. Now that we've covered this question of what is apologetics, I think we need to think a little bit about how. How should we apologize? How should we defend the Christian faith? Well, here I think we need to be very cautious. Apologetics is not the art of winning an argument. It's not a matter of proving others wrong. Think of one of the classic texts in Scripture about apologetics, 1 Peter 3:15. But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you, to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. Here Peter clearly identifies apologetics as part of Christian discipleship. But notice how he not only focuses on what we are to do, he says be prepared, but also on how we are to do it. He says, but do this with gentleness and respect. This is the posture of Christian apologetics. Apologetics should also be winsome. See, apologetics is done with contextual and cultural awareness. Sometimes apologetics answers questions no one is asking. All apologetics, though, it happens within a particular context. We're speaking with people who have questions, and their questions arise from their perspective, from their particular situation. Now, if we ignore this context, the defense which we give will simply not be effective. It won't address the needs of those who we wish to speak to. So one of the first steps in the task of apologetics is assessing the context and culture. Let's think of one example. Think of having a conversation with someone who grew up in the church. They know their Bible and they know key beliefs of the church, but they walked away later in life. Now compare that with a conversation with someone who grew up in a secular city, in a post-Christian country, someone who knew nearly nothing about Christianity. How different would these two conversations be? See, people see the world differently. Their perception is different, and for them, their perception is reality. Now, when I say their perception is reality, I don't mean that what they think is true, but that what they believe to be true shapes and governs how they go about their everyday lives. So practically, this means that we need to adjust our approach in speaking about God to different people. There's a related issue here where sometimes I think we actually need to winsomely shape and direct others' questions. Now, once we've assessed the context, we can direct or guide the questions that others ask. Now, in this course, we're not only going to look at the major issues in apologetics, but we're also going to consider how these issues have developed over time. We're going to ask not only what are the key questions that need to be asked, but how has the church throughout history answered these questions? We'll look at, for example, not only how the problem of evil is addressed today, but how the church answered the problem of evil throughout history. See, sometimes the most compelling answers to these questions were given very early on in the church's history. But some of the possible objections to Christianity were only raised in our contemporary context. This means that while we have to consider the history, the development of these different issues, we also need to, again, just remember our own contemporary context and the importance of our apologetics meeting the needs of our context. Now, in this video, we covered what is apologetics. We said it's a defense, a reasonable defense of the Christian faith, of the gospel. And apologetics has these two aims. First, it paints this captivating picture of what the faith is all about. The Christian faith is desirous. It's true, it's beautiful, it's good. But apologetics also takes on this task of addressing doubts and objections that people have about faith. Now, Scripture tells us how we need to approach apologetics, how we ought to approach defending our faith. It says that we need to approach it with meekness, with humility towards others, and we need to approach it with fear and reverence towards God.